Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
This is Sunday Journal. I'm Dan McCready. The region has just seen its first major winter storm of 2014. As the digging out continues and people survey the damage done by all the wind and snow, there will undoubtedly be many folks who are wondering if they were as prepared as they could have been. Joining us today is Charles Noyes, Emergency Management Director for the town of Bourne, who will provide insights on how Cape Codders can be better prepared for the next winter storm that will arise. Mr. Noyes, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan.
So I guess the first question I would have to ask is, on the whole, would you say that most folks are prepared for a major storm event?
I think most people feel that they are, but many times they find at the last moment they're really not 100% sure of how to put into place the plans that they've already thought about. And we all worry about this. All of us Cape Codders went through the Nemo blizzard last February 8 and 9, and many of us were without power for a number of days. And we all need to remember that, but we also have to remember that we don't need to panic necessarily just because a storm is coming along, and people may associate the word blizzard with it. Many times we just need to take some simple precautions of how will I survive the next but how will I get through the next 24 hours without having the creature comforts at home? The power is not off. How do I stay warm? Do I have food that I can put together to keep myself fulfilled in that respect? And the fact that if I don't have to go someplace, I don't go someplace. Our ancestors did that. Our grandparents and great-grandparents did that before all the necessities of life today. So we just need to think about that. We stay home and we stay warm. We put extra clothes on. We bundle up. We don't go in and out, and we'll get through it pretty much. So we just have to remind ourselves of the basics of self-survivalists, so to speak, and just what we can do on our own without having to venture out or go into a panic mode. Because most of the time we have everything we need right in our house. We just need to put it together in some type of plan before an event occurs.
And speaking of things to have in the house, what do you think, what are some of the must-haves that every Cape Codder should have on hand in the event of a major storm such as this one?
We certainly need to have some type of lighting, whether it be flashlights or some other type of battery-powered or non-electric supported lighting. Olden days, they had kerosene lamps. Nowadays, we frown upon that anytime bringing in an open flame into a building, especially with any type of combustible liquid. But certainly candles that can be enclosed would keep us and give us comfort while staying at home. We also need to stock or take stock of what do I have at home that I can eat without having to turn on electricity to heat it up, to make it palatable. Whether we make up a bunch of sandwiches as the storm approaches, or whether we put together something that can be reheated with something that we have over an open flame from a gas stove. Of course, the gas stove needs many times electricity to run the pilot. So we need to make sure that we have food, water within our homes. We need to make sure that we have necessary prescriptions that we might need to sustain our health and maintain our health during 1 or 2 days. And then the all-important to have some cash in our hands. All too often, many of us don't go around with cash in our pockets anymore. We rely upon plastic of one way, shape, or form. But in the event of a power outage of a day or two, if I had to go out tonight to get something from a neighboring town or the other part of town, which might have electricity, do I have cash that I could go and buy some gas for the car? Could I go out and buy a meal or a sandwich someplace else? So we need to have that. And then, of course, we need to make sure that we have a means to let the rest of our family members know where we are and the fact that we're okay, that somebody from the Berkshires might call down to check on us to see how we're doing because they heard we're having a bad storm down here. And then if they can't reach us, here's where our plan is. We're going to go visit someone else off Cape during a storm, and we're going to go there prior to the storm arriving. or that if we're not at our house, we may be at our daughter or son's house in the other part of town. So we need to take our own responsibility for having a plan and sharing that plan with our family members, so they know that we're safe and that they know that we've taken precautions to take care of ourselves.
And one thing you said that actually I think is really something I want to kind of dive into. I think when it comes to, you mentioned communication, making sure that people can get in touch with us. And in storms in the past, people were always worried that they would lose their phone lines. And, that was in the days especially when most people had landline phones. Now that we've gone into a more cellular age, is that still a concern about people not being able to use their phones?
Yes, that still is a concern of cell phone usage. Most of us rely upon cell phones. Not everyone has a landline hardwired phone in their house. The systems, for the most part, the backbones, the carriers, their cell sites are going to stay up and running because they have self-generators that they're going to continue to run on. The problem boils down to that the device that I may be holding in my hand, the battery on that is going to go dead after a period of time, especially if I'm calling all around and talking to people. So I need to know that I have a means to recharge my personal cell phone during a power outage. And maybe they sell emergency supply packs to recharge them up. They also have solar recharging panels that can connect to a cell phone. Is there a way to go down to your car and you have a car charger that you can plug in while your car is parked in the garage or parked on the driveway? So we need to think about that ahead of time. How will I keep this cell phone charged up? So as long as we think about it and we realize that we have a plug-in charger for the car or that we have a battery backup kit for the cell phone in the house, and where's that kept? That's kept in our emergency kit, our go kit, so to speak, for that. So we just need to be thinking about that.
There's always a concern, especially here in the Cape, about erosion and flooding. And do you think people are prepared enough for that?
Certainly in case of erosion and or lowland or shoreline flooding, many of us who buy or own property within sight of the water, whether it be salt or fresh water, we know there's always some risk involved. And so as long as we're aware of those risks, I think we take the necessary precautions. Primarily is that if we live close to the water and there's going to be a high tide or a storm surge come in, is it going to cut off my access to get away from home or go into town or get out from where I am? And that if I have that beautiful home perched above the bluff overlooking the ocean, what are the chances that erosion eventually is going to get to the point that it's going to undermine the footing and the bluff that my house sits upon? And is my house going to be susceptible to washing away or falling off the edge of a cliff? That's not something we can do immediately pre-storm. Certainly it's something that has to be a long-range plan, and whether it be that you're able to expand and you're able to get permits to protect the bluff that your house might be sitting on, whether or not you're able to move your house to a more safe location, or whether it's a risk that you accepted and that you realize at some point in time Mother Nature may come along and reclaim the land and take your property with it. So as long as we're aware and we make reasonable and conscious decisions about the risk that we face by living right on water's edge, whether it be salt or fresh, I think most of us are going to be safe. It's those foolhardy people who think that we can have that house right on the edge of the water overlooking the cliff and nothing's going to ever happen over the next couple of generations. Those are the people that are pose a risk to themselves and by not accepting the reality of Mother Nature.
And I also wanted to, we talked a little bit about the blizzard last year, the one that's been named Nemo. Following that storm, as speaking as somebody who is an official in this, was what did you think that the governments and first responders and all that learned about that storm? That what was there to learn from a storm of that magnitude that's going to be applied going forward from here?
Certainly after the winter storm we affectionately call Nemo from last February, many communities and public safety officials and agencies learned that it was very difficult to meet all the needs of all the people. Many people came looking for assistance and kind of walked in and wanted to check into a shelter, seek assistance from local officials, without really doing their own due diligence, so to speak. And we found that many public safety officials and shelters, we really didn't have the means to adequately address all the needs that everybody walked in the door with. So I think everybody across the Cape, we undertook a lot of public education programs to help people be better informed as to what they needed to bring with them if they decided to go to the shelter. Whether or not a shelter was the appropriate place for them to be, maybe there was other avenues, either to a motel off Cape someplace, or whether it be to a hospital or some other medical facility. Whereas the staffing that was in the shelters was really stretched pretty thin, and especially when it got to the second or third day, people who have been staffing the shelters for 24, 48, 72 hours straight, they really ran out of resources to do that. So public safety on the Cape Cod and emergency response officials, we really learned that we needed to do a better job of helping people to help themselves, be better prepared for long-term power outages in the future, and that if people decided to seek shelter, that they needed to go and be prepared when they showed up. I borrowed a phrase that I first saw in Littleton, Massachusetts, where, remember, shelter is a lifeboat, it's not a cruise boat. So when you show up in that lifeboat, if there's something you need, you should be bringing it. Don't expect it automatically to be there. And that it's a short-term event, and that all the creature comforts at home will not be available to you. And pretty much a shelter is a warm, dry, and secure place for people to take refuge during an event.
Now, I wanted to ask you, too, when you're talking about the people who come out, there are, of course, people who are not going to be coming out to the shelters, who are going to try to hunker down. And during a storm like this, is there any group in particular that neighbors really need to pay attention to, or any group that's particularly in danger during events like this?
Certainly during events like this, a snowstorm, and as long as the power stays on, we're all pretty much safe and secure in our own homes. It's when the power goes off, and goes off for more than a day, and reaches into the end of the first day, and then certainly goes into the second day. We need to be concerned about our elderly neighbors, as well as those people who may have medical conditions that we know about. And certainly good neighbors would go knock on the door of the neighbor just to make sure that everybody's all right, you're warm, you have something to eat. And, we find that most senior citizens will say, I'm fine, and I'll be fine, and don't want to bother anybody else. But it becomes after a while, during an extended period of time when the heat's been off, that many of us lose our ability to make good decisions for our own health and safety. So it really becomes incumbent upon a neighbor to knock on the door and see if they're all right. If they're not all right, and they know they've been in their house for more than a day, and the temperature's quite cold outside, which is what it's supposed to do during the course of this weekend, then really they need to maybe alert some public safety officials, either the local fire or police department, and then go check on them. Or even the Council on Aging now have done a lot. I know here in Bourne, our Council on Aging has done a lot to improve their outreach to get in touch with those residents who may still be in home and may need some services while they're at home, and then especially if the power has been out for a day or more.
And speaking of the Bourne Council on Aging, I wanted to talk about an upcoming event there, Emergency Readiness. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly. There's an emergency readiness program being put on with the cooperation of the AmeriCorps of Cape Cod. Some workers from there will be going to making some presentations to Council on Aging members who will be there to observe this program this coming week, next week actually. And once again, to go along with what I talked about earlier, just to better inform and educate people of what they need to do to help take care of themselves during an event where they might be reliant upon themselves. So the more that message is spoken and taught and preached about through any means possible, the more likely that message will get across of what individuals need to do to better prepare ourselves for any emergency.
And now, is this event specifically for the elderly, or is it relevant for anybody who would want to drop by?
It's certainly relevant to anybody that may want to partake of it, and it is this Tuesday the 7th at 10 a.m. at the War Veterans Memorial Community Building on Main Street in Buzzards Bay.
Well, unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I did want to thank you so much for coming in today and sharing this very important information with us, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate any means and avenue to get the message out and to help better inform our residents of how they can take care of themselves.
My guest today was Charles Noyes, Emergency Management Director for the town of Bourne. The Bourne Council on Aging will be hosting the event entitled Emergency Readiness. The event takes place at the Buzzards Bay location at 239 Main Street. To learn more, contact the Council on Aging. I'm Dan McCready, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.